Hey guys, it's Gino. So, I'm pretty sure you guys have always wanted to know, bakit nga ba ang bagal ng internet ko? Well, I've been researching on that cause, I wanna know as well. So today on Day 1 Media, we discuss, bakit nga ba ang bagal ng internet ko? Let's go! Okay, so guys, welcome back to our Kapihan series, and this is our very second episode. I'm Gino again, and we are discussing bakit nga ba ang bagal ng internet natin sa Pilipinas, diba? You would think na because of the rampant rise of technology, that we have smartphones in our pockets, that we have basically all the technology in the world, seemingly everything, we would already have fast internet, at home at least. But that's not the case. So bakit nga ba ang bagal ng internet natin? Well, actually, it boils down to many reasons. Some of the reasons include it's because of the duopoly. But it's not just because of the duopoly. There are other reasons as well. So right now, there are plenty of new technologies that we see in the US and in other countries. We see them use 5G. We see them use high-frequency Wi-Fi and high-frequency wireless technologies. I remember back then, using my 6230i, that was my first phone. I remember using a GPRS Edge browser. So, naalala nyo pa ba yun? GPRS Edge browser, yung naalala ko, napagalitan pa ako dun kasi nag-post ako ng video. Video. Let's try and discuss, why is your internet so bad? So point number 1, just because there's a duopoly and Smart and PLDT and Globe are the only ones in the game, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the sole reason kung bakit ang bagal ng internet natin. In general, I think that, most of us would think that way. But yes, it is one of the reasons as why ang bagal ng internet natin. And one of the things that I would like to highlight is the service or the lack thereof. The terrible maintenance and the upkeep that PLDT does, especially, to their subscribers, how they handle their subscribers, is not a good job at all. At least in our case, we're more fortunate than others that we have PLDT home fiber. And even that fiber signal, actually, in total na nagkaroon kami ng fiber, we've had say 5-6 times na nasiraan kami, nawalan kami ng signal because of the actual connection itself. That's the thing, especially with the monopoly and the duopoly thing. Companies are not incentivized to do better service. I think that's number one. That's the number one thing that the monopoly causes. The companies of both PLDT and Globe, they know that they really can't, or at least they don't really have any competition. That's why they can just do the service as it is, as it already exists. They don't wanna outdo one another because they're pretty comfortable at their prices and they're pretty comfortable at how their subscribers feel about them, and they know that their subscribers won't really be going to anyone else because there's only two of them in the game, Globe and PLDT. So that's the problem, really. It's that they have terrible service. Now, what causes terrible service? Well, of course, they outsource. Now, outsourcing is one of the sensitive topics when it comes to Philippine society today. You remember dati, diba? So, nagkaroon tayo ng fiasco with PLDT already having outsourced about 70% of their labor workforce. Alright, hold up for a second. What I said here was wrong. It was actually 7,000 employees instead of 70% of their employees. Alright, let's move along. So, grabe, can you imagine that much workforce just going into just being outsourced? Hindi in-house talent, hindi hired. Mga labor contractors lang. So, yun yung hirap eh. Oo, yes, you're providing jobs. Pero you're providing bare minimum wages, you're providing bare minimum living standards. And that's the terrible thing about, outsourcing, and that's the terrible thing about Endo and all of these things, is that people are not incentivized to do better because they're paid the bare minimum. So you can't really blame it on the linemen that they don't quote-unquote know how to do their job, because it's really what they're paid to do. It's the only thing they're paid to do. And if I was, told to go outside and then fix other people's internet connections, sabihin lang natin, theoretically, for 500 pesos per house, that depends on you, I guess. That depends on you. If I were only paid, sabihin natin, about 200, 300 pesos, that might not be enough. That might not suffice for me. Especially for a lot of other people out there who already have, certain standards, certain expectations when it comes to income, that might not be enough. Especially if they have families, maghihirap yung mga yan, and they won't think too much about work. They won't think about the service quality. What they will think is feeding their stomach, feeding their families. And that's the sad thing about Philippine society, is that we try to pinch as much pennies as we can. We try to save as much as we can. But we're not promoting inclusive growth. We're not promoting the Filipinos to inclusively develop alongside us. And that's the things that I think should change, especially with COVID-19 and with the recent developments, is that we should learn to care for blue-collar workers a lot more. We should compensate them more and not just outsource them, but actually employ them and give them benefits and good salaries so that they can actually be incentivized to do better things. I remember I read in Richard Branson's, no, it's not Richard Branson's book, but I think it's Richard Branson, CEO of Virgin Galactic. Oh yeah, it is Richard Branson. So, Richard Branson. So I remember, and when I was reading this book, I forgot what book it was, but Richard Branson noted that in order to have happy customers, you need to focus on your labor first, on your workforce first. You need to serve your workforce, your employees first, because once your employees are happy, they can trickle it down to your guests, to your consumers, to the end user. Richard Branson mentioned that you should focus on people. You should focus not just on the end user, but you should focus on your employees, because they're, at the end of the day, even if you don't have customers, they're the ones that will keep your business running, and they're the ones who are gonna find those customers for you. So it's a pretty important thing that you keep these people happy, that you keep these people motivated, and you give them enough drive so that they can actually be incentivized to work harder and better. And that's what we lack in Philippine society today. In so many jobs, we are forced to work 7-8 hours a day. And doing what? I think a colleague of mine had mentioned himself, had admitted himself that co-workers or colleagues of his would actually, scroll through Facebook for the better part of the day, and then, get actual work done for like the last hour of the day. So that's the reality happening in so many offices around the world, is that we're just telling our people to do the bare minimum of clocking in at 8 a.m. and then clocking out at 5 p.m. And I think it's a fundamentally flawed system that we really need to change nowadays, especially with the COVID development. Okay, so off track. So we've already went way too far from the from the crisis of people, of labor, of employment. Let's move on to home connections and Wi-Fi. When we're talking about wired connections, what we typically think of is DSL, fiber, and cable, as in like Sky Cable and TV cable. Now, all of these mediums can actually carry your internet to your home, but fiber is actually the most effective at carrying internet to your home, simply because of the technology of the wire they use. They actually use fiber optic cables. Now, from the word itself, it looks like a fiber of plastic. That's basically the idea. Fiber optic is that it's a very thin piece of plastic that carries light to and from 2 points. Now, you're probably thinking, why isn't PLDT just lowering prices and giving us better connections if fiber can basically accommodate unlimited petabits per second connections? So the idea is, at the end of the day, even if you have these wires that are made out of plastic and then carry petabits of data per second, the end servers of PLDT, of Globe, these things still need to handle all of the load and still need to process it and still need to redirect it to the different addresses that it needs to go through. And that's the thing, even if your medium is super duper great, at the end of the day, your bottleneck will be the actual server, the actual things that will route your connections. And those things need to be upkept. Those things need to be further upgraded, constantly upgraded, so it'll be able to handle the amount of traffic going through the internet as we have right now. So I talked about the wired internet. So we now have the two main types of connections at home. We have your wired connections, and we also have the fixed wireless connections. So what I mentioned a while ago was the wired connections. So that's DSL, cable, fiber. Now we also have fixed wireless internet connections. Now this is the one employed by Globe and Smart as well. Now fixed wireless internet connections is actually one of the things that are more rampant, especially in developing countries such as ours, because it is actually generally cheaper, because usually these things are prepaid, so you only top them up 100, 200, 300 pesos depending on your needs of internet for that very moment, for that very day. In the long term, yeah, it is actually cheaper. But here's the thing with fixed wireless internet. From the word itself, wireless, wireless signals tend to degrade pretty quickly. Even in our house, so we have Wi-Fi in our house, and there are about 10 people at home that constantly fight over the Wi-Fi signal. The thing is, with wireless connections, it's easy for it to get caught up in between walls and between tree branches and between even air. There are certain types of climates and certain types of situations where the wireless internet may not deliver as good as wired internet connection does. Now, also the problem with fixed wireless internet connections that Globe offers is that they're shared by the mobile data users. So ako, imagine nyo, so nagpo-phone ako, gumagamit ako ng phone, and then I'm browsing through Facebook, watching a video on mobile data. Now, fixed wireless internet connections also use mobile data. It's basically no different. It basically uses the same thing as mobile data. Now, imagine na, ayun nga, you're using your mobile phone and then you're browsing YouTube or whatever on mobile data, but the problem is you're also fighting over the bandwidth because there's only so much bandwidth that Globe can use, that Smart can use to allocate for internet users to access. Now imagine fighting over that bandwidth with people who are on the go and people who are at home as well. So that's the hard thing. Imagine mo na may family of 5 and then they're using prepaid internet connection. Ang lala nun. Imagine mo sabay-sabay sila gumamit ng prepaid internet connection. E di bottleneck kaagad yun. E di isang malaking load kaagad yun sa server ni Globe as compared sa napakaraming individual persons na magkakalayo, na different, na iba-iba yung pinagkakaabalahan. Just adding a home to the equation of several people compounds the problem of fixed wireless connection. Wireless connections are even prone to other wireless connection. To anyone who is using, the Globe prepaid home Wi-Fi connection at home, please don't. I mean, sakit lang yan sa ulo, and usually that's the problem. Usually yun nga, kasi you're sharing your bandwidth with the rest of the people around you. That's the terrible thing about it. So I highly advise against it, and I really recommend to try something else. Okay, so we talked about the two types, the wired internet connections and the fixed wireless internet connections. Now, both of them have their pros and cons. Now, the fixed wireless internet connection is usually cheaper at the cost of reliability, and the wired connection is, better by basically all means, but just a bit more expensive. There is one thing that they converge on. I'm pretty sure you at home, meron ka dyang Wi-Fi router. Now, yung Wi-Fi router mo, so it's actually what propagates the wired signal or the mobile data signal. It's what propagates it to your home or to the people around you. And sometimes it can be a bottleneck, especially if you have an old wireless router. It can be a huge bottleneck, I tell you. Back then, we had our first wireless router was it's this thing that can only carry about 54 megabits a second. So again, megabits is not to be confused with megabytes per second. What more kapag you have several devices trying to fight over that internet connection? Eh di mas malala, diba? So there are really, wireless connections, wireless routers that will be a bottleneck. And right now, actually, our PLDT home fiber default wireless router, I think it is the bottleneck at home, especially with people around here using about 10 connections at a time. At the very least, 10 devices connected at once to this wireless router. So it's easy to see that it'll get overloaded pretty quickly. So wireless routers actually have processors inside them. So processors, so parang yung sa PC rin dito, processors that actually do the computation and allocation as to how the internet will be spread out at home and to the various devices at home. Sometimes na-overload siya, sometimes nag-overheat and all of those things, which will inevitably cause your internet to slow down. So that's one of the things that you need to look out for, and I will definitely look out for. And especially, I'm thinking of upgrading our wireless router because I really think that's the culprit. What I'll try to advise you guys at home to do is connect your PC or your laptop to a LAN connection, to your local area network connection. So basically, Ethernet cable rekta sa router, because that will make your speeds a hell lot faster. So right now, we're actually averaging about, if I load fast.com and see your internet connection, we're averaging about, on Wi-Fi, 60 megabits a second. So it's actually pretty good. But the ping, that's where, the ping is where you will basically die on wireless connections. Right now, it's on 24 ms, so it's pretty terrible. So if I did a speed test right here on this PC, it would only give me about 1 ms, which is great because, especially for games, especially for applications that need the ping, need the response time, it'll do great. You will do great if you're connected to an Ethernet cable. Ethernet cables are also a great troubleshooting step towards to see whether or not your internet is actually good or not. So titingnan mo lang kung talagang may internet nga ba through Ethernet, kasi sometimes it's really the Wi-Fi connection that drops. Kasi people downstairs, what I did was go downstairs and then try to see throughout the day the Wi-Fi connection downstairs as opposed to my LAN connection here upstairs. People downstairs were constantly complaining about how slow the internet was. And while I was upstairs, I was just chilling out and then enjoying myself and enjoying the fast internet speeds we had, people were still complaining downstairs, and I was like, what? Seriously? Nag-ano pa rin kayo? Problema pa rin kayo? I'm just here upstairs. And then, later find out after doing more research na the wireless router can and will be a culprit, especially if marami kayong gumagamit ng internet. Also, of note, to the DSL users out there, I wasn't able to mention, but DSL is actually quite a terrible connection nowadays. That PLDT has a reason, Globe has a reason, and all of these ISPs or internet service providers have a reason why they don't sell DSL anymore, because it's terrible. It fights over bandwidth, it fights over the connection that you have over analog, and it's basically archaic. It can only carry about, say, 20 megabits a second maximum speeds. And alam ko yung 20 megabits a second yun, parang 2,000 plus kaagad yung presyo nun eh. Sobrang mahal. While what we have right now on our fiber line is plan at 1899. It comes with a phone and it comes with a 30 megabits a second internet connection. Actually, originally it was 20 megabits a second. When Converge came into the equation and started competing with PLDT, PLDT raised the speeds to Converge's level of 30 megabits a second. And so yes, competition does help. Nakakatulong talaga pag may kakompetensya sila. Now let's talk about DNS servers. Now what is DNS? Well, simply put, they are called domain name servers. So they're the ones that convert your URL into machine or computer readable code called an IP address. So this IP address is literally like a normal address. So, 'di ba, sa pagpupunta ka sa isang hotel or pagpupunta ka sa bahay ng friend mo, kailangan mo malaman yung exact address, especially if you're gonna mail something to them. So, this is basically how it works as well, because on the internet, everything needs to have an address. And a DNS server is basically this huge list of internet web pages that have IP addresses and their URL or uniform resource locator. Basically, it's basically like a logbook of a URL and what's it equivalent to. So say facebook.com. Let's try and search up facebook.com. So the first thing that comes up when you search up Facebook IP address online, it comes up with the numbers 176.13.69.63. That's one of their IP addresses. So that's basically the main gateway to get to Facebook. But what's the problem with DNS servers? Now, DNS servers can actually get corrupted. So I would like to think of DNS servers like a phone book. DNS servers are, that guide as to where you need to go, like a phone book is to a certain landmark, a certain area. Now, phone books get outdated and so can DNS servers. So, sa DNS server, kung ma-outdate man yan, ang mangyayari is wala ka nang mapupuntahang website. You won't reach any web page at all. It will just show up blank, or at worst, it'll show up another web page. And so that's the thing with outdated DNS servers. But usually DNS servers are updated. They're updated like every few minutes or hours at most, at worst. Here in the Philippines, PLDT has their own DNS server. When I used their DNS server, well, actually, a few years ago, there was quite the issue wherein Facebook images would stop loading. I don't know kung kung naabutan nyo yun, or kung napansin nyo man yun. Pero there was this certain time talaga na I tried loading Facebook from all of my devices here at home, and then wala pa rin, blank images pa rin. And then I tried loading it on my phone using mobile data, and then I realized everything was in tip-top shape. Medyo nawala lang bigla. Okay, so medyo nag-cut siya. I think I've been talking to you guys for too long. Okay. Anyways, so DNS servers, when talking about DNS servers, the two biggest DNS names that can come up in my mind is Cloudflare's public DNS server and Google's public DNS server, which are 1.1.1.1 and 8.8.8.8. That's my recommendation to change your DNS servers. My fourth point is your plan. Now, some of us are not as lucky to be in Metro Manila or in fiber-covered areas. Basically have no choice but to live with DSL or fixed wireless internet. But other than that, probably don't have a choice in your area. But to those who do have a choice, sobrang worth it. As in, mag-fiber kayo. Our original internet connection was a plan 1299 DSL internet connection. And it was also offered by PLDT. Now, plan 1299 only offered 5 megabits a second. And when we switched to plan 1899 of PLDT as well, and they offered us 20 megabits a second, what I can say is it was godsend, basically. Grabe yung difference in terms of like connection speed and download speed and upload speed, and like grabe. I was like thinking na, pwede pala to. Posible pala to sa Pilipinas. And actually, especially now, originally it was 20 megabits a second. So again, I mentioned, nang dumating sa Converge, they upped it to 25, and then Converged up theirs to 25, and then PLDT up theirs to 30, and Converge up theirs to 30. You can see competition is a great thing, really. This is actually a great time to switch to fiber, especially during ECQ na ang daming kailangan ng internet, work from home, and all of that. I guarantee sobrang worth it ng plan 1899. Or say go to Converge. I think it costs about 1599 for a 20 megabit a second plan. And that's, I think, more than worth it. Mag-e-enjoy talaga kayo, and you would really see the speed difference and the lifestyle change from a 5 megabit a second DSL connection to something more livable. Really. Please do. And if not, probably use mobile data, because DSL is not cutting it these days. Just don't. Please don't use DSL these days. Right now, during ECQ nga, PLDT offered us from 30 megabits a second. It spikes to about 60 megabits a second during the night. Pero on average, it goes about 50 megabits a second. They really announced that they were giving out free speed boosts during the duration of the ECQ, which I highly welcome. Shoutout po sa PLDT, please, huwag nyo na bawiin. Ang bilis ng internet. Di kayo magsisisi. Swear. So, again, you should get a better plan if that's what you need, especially for home-based people nowadays. For sure, some of you are thinking na bakit hindi na lang nila murahan from 1899 to 1599 yung plans nila. We live in a democracy. We live in a free market, capitalism. That's how the world works. So, if you'd rather go towards communism. Okay, so I hope you appreciated that. Now let's move on to the last point, which is government. Now this is the one that's a bit subjective. mostly from speculation, from hearsay, and all of those stuff. But what I do happen to know about government is that this is what I mentioned a while ago, that I don't want to fully blame telcos for their inadequacy at first, because in reality, government is partly to blame. So government has actually been one of the huge hurdles when it comes to developing infrastructure. This is mainly due to red tape. All of these bureaucracies, these permits required to set up a cell tower, it's a big hassle for companies. They need to set up these things years in advance, and they need to talk to all of these people and the higher ups, and sometimes may singit pa yan may onting onting kupit ganon. And that's the thing with industry, that's the bad practice with industry nowadays, is that it's become normal. That's the thing that we need to fix. I really want to say it out there to NTC, to the DICT, and to all of these agencies involved. Please make it easier for companies to roll out new cell towers and new ways of serving their subscribers, because that's the only way that you can actually address the congested network in Metro Manila, to provide more cell towers, more infrastructure. That's literally the only way that you can help people. And so, yeah, that's the idea. If there were none of those red tapes, I'm pretty sure that they would have done a better job at developing the infrastructure. But, I digress. And so that's it really. So let's recap. Let's talk about duopoly. Now, duopoly, it's not just because of duopoly, but it's because of terrible service and maintenance, and of course, the outsourcing thing. They don't use in-house talent to fix their problems, and instead outsource people, and these outsourced people are usually paid the bare minimum in order to work, and that's why they're not incentivized to do things. That's number one. The second is fixed wireless connections and wired connections at home. Now, when talking about fixed wireless and wired connections, they have one thing in common, which is Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi router you have at home. Now, the Wi-Fi router is usually what causes the slowdowns more often than not, especially if you already have a fast internet or an adequate internet connection. That's usually that'll be the culprit. And if you have very thick walls at home and a lot of things blocking the Wi-Fi signal, that is actually what will cause your Wi-Fi slowdowns. And even competing Wi-Fi connections can cause your Wi-Fi connection to drop as well. Now let's talk about DNS servers. DNS servers, of course, are the phone book of the internet. And DNS servers can crash, or they can slow down, or even outright get corrupted. And that's why I recommend to try other DNS servers and see whether or not there's an improvement. For me personally, when I switched to Google Public DNS back from PLDT's very slow DNS, a lot of my problems were solved with bad pictures loading. And so that might help you, especially if you have a very similar position as I do. And of course, our plan. That's point number 4, our internet plan. Not everyone will be able to afford a good internet plan, and not everyone will have access or will be in an area that's fiber supported. But to those who are on the ropes, it's a no-brainer really, coming from someone who got from a DSL connection and then to a fiber connection. Actually, started off with a dial-up connection. Naabutan ko pa naman yun, and I remember all the beeps and the chimes and the terrible things, and how you're not allowed to answer the phone while someone's using the internet. So, naabutan ko pa yung era na yun. And grabe, I must say, the leaps and bounds that we've made, phenomenal. Pero is it enough? Especially with the leaps that our phones have done in the past 10 years alone. Grabe yung development ng phones in the past 10 years alone. Probably not enough. And that's why really we need to invest in our internet connection, in our internet infrastructure as well. For those who are on the ropes, really just bite the bullet and enjoy and really see the difference from a DSL connection to a fiber connection. It really makes a world of difference. So speaking about infrastructure, government. So government is the reason why this is the 5th point, government is the reason why a lot of telcos haven't been able to set up their infrastructure especially in far-flung areas, because it takes a lot of approvals, it takes a lot of permits to do so. And that's why I'm calling on the NTC, Especially ngayon na sobrang active ng NTC with ABS-CBN, I'm calling on them to make the process as much easier and to direct these companies into, putting up strategic access points in areas that people need them the most. So yeah, that's the idea. And so guys, those are my theories as to why our internet is so slow. Now, and also those are also my recommendations as to what we can do to fix it. Probably upgrade, change your wireless router, change your DNS, change your plan, or maybe even, talk to your government, and if you're in a position of power, try to coordinate with these people and see what you can do about it. Because really, it's only through moving that we can actually have results. And I really think that, for you at home, well, that's really all you can do. You don't really have much of a choice. But I digress, that's all I can say. That's all I can say right now. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something about the industry and our economy and how things work around here and internet plans and all of those things. I hope you guys enjoyed, and really, I hope you guys give us some comments and suggestions as to what we can do next. This is our very second Kapihan episode, and more often than not, this is actually just very experimental. This was shot on the same day that we shot the first episode of Kapihan, which was about folding at home. So, for our next Kapihan episodes and for our next Kalikot episodes, please just keep on suggesting. We're new at this, and we're just a couple of friends who are, trying to learn the ropes on YouTube, but have some experience with production before. So hopefully you guys enjoy this, and hopefully you guys, can share this and like this, subscribe to support us and to help us, keep developing and keep learning. So this is a shared value thing, and we hope that you guys learn from this as much as we're learning from this. We're learning so much about lighting, about audio, and about setting up your studio, your room as a studio, especially during ECQ. And I hope that you learned something about the internet and how everything is connected and how everything works and the plans and the prices. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Kapihan. Thank you guys, peace out, and hope to see you in the next one. And that's a wrap. Okay, 2 episodes, one night.